Hey guys, welcome back. It's great to be back after my trip that was way too long. I had a great time in Egypt. I'm going to say more about it with Derek on the Brazen Heads this week, but there's no way in hell I'm taking another 2-week vacation. 8 days max. After 8 days, I just start to get antsy, and I want to be here talking with you guys. You know, it's interesting. Like sometimes people find out what I do, and they'll ask me about therapy, and they'll ask me questions that they think that they want answers to. But I just go off on this screed because I don't have you guys to screed to. So I have to displace it onto somebody else. You know, some nice person at dinner who asked me about, why do people tend to spend way too much time in therapy? Or what's the reason behind that? Or do you have any view on cognitive behavioral therapy? And then I just black out for the next 43 minutes and wake up and like, wait, what just happened? I need you guys to screed too. So other people don't think I'm so weird. Anyways, good to be back. This week we have a discussion about Balenciaga and their recent marketing campaign, advertising campaign. I mean, this is probably old news now, but like I said, I was in Egypt and pretty much Egypt's effectively a third world country, so it's difficult to get internet there and find out what's going on, which is good, which is relaxing. But again, good to be back. So Balenciaga, this high fashion company, released a series of ads that showed children in very compromising situations, and it seems to be promoting pedophilia. But I think something else may be going on. And of course, this won't just be about Balenciaga. This will be about how a lot of us, when we have neurosis and we don't have the neurosis has us and has its way with us. We do this thing where we reverse cause and effect. We look at the world and say, look at this thing that's happening to me, even though you are the exact person who's causing it. And if this was any other situation, if it was somebody else who was going through a similar situation, it'd be very easy for you to see, oh yeah, you just don't understand that your issues, your psychological projections are what's causing what you think is happening in the world, and really what you're doing is simply describing your projection. It's easy to do that when we're looking at somebody else, but when it's us doing it, it's because we're trapped in the neurosis. The neurosis has us. It's very difficult to step out of it. But I think this is what is happening with Balenciaga. So let's go through what these ads are. I have them pulled up here. I'm going to try this thing where I show you some multimedia as I'm doing this recording. We'll see. So here's one of the ads. And this is a great one because, apologies for any futziness going on here. So this is a kid. You probably can't tell, but there's this not the best rendition of this photo. It's actually difficult to find photos. Maybe that's part of the cover-up. It was difficult to find photos of this campaign. I mean, they're online, but you'd think there would be more. So there we have a bear down here in some kind of strange BDSM outfit. And then here on the floor, there's tape that says ball. So it's spelled, Balenciaga with one A, but here, it's spelled with two A's. Clearly, they're worshiping Baal, the Old Testament god, the heathen god that, the Babylonians worshipped, like the non-Jews worshipped. And then I don't know what's going on up here, probably some other pedophilia reference. And then in another one of the ads, there's this, which is a reference to this Ashcroft case, which was a Supreme Court case that essentially said there were restrictions to possibly something having to do with pedophilia, but this court ruling, this Ashcroft ruling, it was back in 1995, it ruled that those restrictions were against free speech. That went against free speech. It went against the First Amendment. So you could argue, this is in favor, all the pedophiles in the world. It went, yeah, a victory for our kind of speech, pedophilia, which would technically fall more under free speech. And it's interesting that the way that they just put that in there, which I do think is on purpose, but not for the reason people think it is. I don't think it's really to promote pedophilia. We'll talk about it. And then there's this ad here, just to let you guys know. You've probably seen all this, but I'm just trying to let you know so here's a little girl with a bed. She's in bondage. And that is bondage, right? That's not just, and there's some bondage stuff down here. And there's bondage over here on this teddy bear. I mean, strange. At first you would say, oh, this is very strange. They're clearly promoting pedophilia. Or are they, quote unquote, promoting pedophilia because they know they're going to get you? Because they're making fun of you, right? And this happens all the time in our psychological lives. Let me pull up my notes here. You can look at my notes as I read through them. This happens all the time. It's similar to like when guys have an issue where they go out with a girl, or go out with many girls. They go out with 10 girls in a row, and the girl just always seems to land on whatever their insecurity is. They're insecure about sexuality. Sexuality comes up in the conversation. Oh, it just happens to come up in the conversation with the girl. And then you feel insecure and you feel like you start to lose your composure. Now, what a lot of guys do, a lot of guys who are uninitiated, let's just say, they will say, oh, women are being mean. Women are being mean to me, or women have all these issues. Why do they always have to talk about sex? And they don't see that the fact that they're talking about sex because they can tell that it bothers you. They're messing with you, right? This is called a shit test. It used to be called, back in my day, back in 2002, it used to be called flirting. A woman was flirting with you if she could sense that you were insecure about something and she just kind of prodded you in a fun way. That means she likes you. Guys will say, oh, when a woman hates you, she'll try to destroy you, but when she really loves you, she'll support you no matter what you do. No. When she loves you, she'll still try to destroy you. That's part of the fun. Don't you get it? That's the game. She tries to destroy you. She realizes she can't. It's not going to work because you're no longer taking your validation from her. You're no longer deriving any sexual worth you think you may have from the fact that she is from her validation of you. Yeah, that's maybe a more broad way of saying it is, oh, my validation issue gets triggered whenever I'm out with a girl. Why are they doing this? They're so mean. No, they're doing it because they can tell their response to you affects how you see yourself. So they're going to rip on you. They're going to make fun of you. I don't think that Balenciaga is promoting pedophilia. I mean, that's just silly. We're going to get into some explanation. I got a clip here from Andrew Tate. Ooh, even more multimedia. Wow. So interactive. And he has a theory of why they may be actively promoting pedophilia. I don't know. Seems kind of specious. Maybe what's going on is that for the left, and I don't know if you need to hear this from me, but we're not in a culture war. The culture war is over. The culture war has been over for 40 plus years, and the left won. It's fine. The left won the culture war. And right now, what is inside the left's Overton window of what they're able to joke about, the Jokerton window, as I call it, it is within the left's Jokerton window to joke about pedophilia. It is not within the right's Jokerton window. Now, something that would be in the right's Jokerton window that's not in the left's Jokerton window would be something like racism. And I could imagine a scenario where if the right won the culture war in the 60s and the 70s, and they had some high fashion, it wouldn't be high fashion, it would be Cabela's, right? And they were trying to sell camo gear. I could see them using something like blackface. Making fun of blackface would be the right's rendition of the left making fun of pedophilia. What are you really making fun of? Are you making light of pedophilia or racism? No, you're really making fun of the other side's reaction to it. Their overblown, ridiculous reaction. We'll get to it with Andrew Tate's reaction. That's what they're making fun of you. They're making fun of your reaction. Is that girl who you are out with, is she really making fun of the fact that you're bald, or is she just making fun of what she intuits is going to be your reaction to the fact that you may have some insecurities about the fact that you're bald? Same thing with your mother-in-law. Same kind of issue. Oh, whenever I'm with my mother-in-law, she always seems to to rip on me, or she's so annoying to be around because she just can't stop bringing up the fact that I don't spend enough time with the kids and how I'm messing them up, and she just won't leave me alone. What is she really doing? Why does that work? Why does your mother-in-law continue to bring that up and just find that weak point and just drive a screwdriver, just, push on it a little bit harder each day? Because it works, right? Because there is a weak point there, and she sees it, she intuits you have it, and she just drives it, Is your mother-in-law annoying, or are you just annoyed with yourself that you have issues that your mother-in-law can pick up on easily and make fun of you, or rip on you, or say that you're a bad father? This is effective marketing. That's what this is. Yeah, so outside the Joker tin window, the reverse would be blackface. And it's true in a sense. So what I'm saying here is that Balenciaga, they put this ball tape in. I gotta make this small again. They put this ball tape in. You're right. It's not a coincidence. It's a coincidence because they know that you're going to pick up on it. You're going to look for things. Yeah, they put all these pedophile references. There are pedophile references, and they are putting them in this ad. They're doing it to make fun of you. They're making fun of your egregious reaction. And of course, pedophilia exists, right? Of course, pedophilia exists. And this is what people do. I mean, this is what people in power do, is that, of course, elites exist. People in power will use their power to cover up their addiction. This is always what people do with addiction, whether it's pedophilia or a heroin addiction, opiate addiction. You often find when you work with addicts is that they will concoct a life so that they can use their drug of choice, whatever it happens to be, whether it's sex, some strange, abnormal, unhealthy, of course, abusive kind of sex, pedophilia, or whether it's an opiate, whether they're pill poppers. They will construct a life that will insulate them from the effects of that. Now, there's two ways you can do it. The one way is to get a lot of money and status and power and influence. That's one kind of insulation. Another kind of insulation is just to poop your pants on 72nd Street. Same kind of thing. You're both in, it's the kind of thing, once you get really rich and really poor, it kind of looks the same. Yeah, I think this was one of those cases. Because if you're really rich and have a lot of influence, people won't care that you have a drug addiction. Or if you're like a distant father, you can just buy your kids gifts, and that'll help you deal with the fact that you're, it's funny walking through airports, which I was just doing the past couple of weeks, and a lot of, seems to be a lot of toys in these shops. They're not toy stores, right? They're just toys in a random, newsstand kind of shop, selling toys to little kids. Because, you're dad and you're away from your kids for 2 weeks. You feel guilty. I felt it. Right? So, I'm going to buy something for my daughter. That'll make up for the fact. And you're more likely to let yourself get away with that when you make a lot of money or have influence, and people are going to bother you less. And people are also not going to bother you when you're pooping yourself on 72nd Street. They're just going to leave you alone. These things that look the opposite could very well be have the same psychological intention behind them. Not always, but it's just something to consider. So, of course, so pedophilia exists. We're not wrong for pointing out. I think there are pedophile rings, of course. I mean, they've already been exposed. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's true. But if the right won the culture war in 1972, and they were putting out their kids in blackface Cabela ads, the left would say the same thing. Well, racism exists. Of course it exists. And of course it's terrible. Just like, of course, pedophilia exists. And of course it's terrible. But is Balenciaga promoting pedophilia, or are they just making fun of you? Would Cabela's, if they had that ad of children in blackface, are they promoting racism, or are they just making fun of what they perceive to be, idiots on the left, libtards, they would call them? Balenciaga here, they're making fun of what, we would typically refer to as bumpkins, conservatards, people who are going to, freak out. What are they really making fun of? What's more likely? Well, for another perspective, let's see what Andrew Tate has to say here. Okay, had this, already played it. Okay, so here's his take. It's just a couple minutes long. Let's see.
What are the statistical odds of repeated references to pedophilia being included in multiple advertisement campaigns for one particular brand?
Yeah, what are the statistical odds? Of course. Why does it happen, though? You're reversing cause and effect. What are the statistical odds that when I'm insecure about my baldness or my fatness, when I'm out on a date with a girl, that insecurity is going to come up? What are the statistical odds of that happening? It's 100%. What are the statistical odds that all these little pedophilic references and coincidences and references to ball? That can't be a coincidence. No, it's not a coincidence because they're making fun of you. All right.
Basically, completely impossible. This is very, very purposeful, and they've done it because they're trying to give you hints and trying to normalize and show you and tell you what they do. They're doing this because of karmic retribution. Satanists believe if they tell you what they're doing, if they make their intentions clear and you still adhere to them, that they are no longer responsible for the negative consequences of them. That is karmic retribution. I'll give you an example.
First of all, that's not karmic retribution. Now, maybe that could be one example of it. I tried to look it up. I didn't see anything about Satanism and karmic retribution, how he's going to describe it. What karmic retribution was what we typically think of karma. It comes from Buddhism. If you do good things in the world, if you give a homeless guy $1, if you think giving a homeless guy $1 is a good thing. I mean, I think that's retarded, but maybe you think giving a homeless guy $1 is a good thing. And so you're going to have this belief that if you do good things like that, then good things will happen to you. And there's a definite psychological truth to this. Probably not metaphysical, but a psychological truth to this. That's karmic retribution. That's all it means. I try to look up I don't know. Maybe the internet scrubbed all this because it's the elites and they all scrubbed all this information from the internet. But let's see what he thinks it is.
I have a stall of poisoned apples and I put up a sign that says apples and you buy one, I've poisoned you. But if I have a stall of poisoned apples and I put up a sign that says poison apples and you buy one, now you've committed suicide. I have not poisoned you. You have committed suicide. If you know what I am doing, if you know what I am selling, and you still comply and adhere, you are basically saying that all the consequences are erased. That's how karmic retribution works in the satanic world.
Maybe I've tried to do some research. I haven't found anything about that. Or maybe they're just making fun of you in your reaction. I mean, what a genius marketing campaign, honestly. Because they have, quote unquote, one of the typically most masculine guys who we would look up to and go, this is the most masculine guy, and he's babbling like a little girl. One criticism of Andrew Tate, this isn't my criticism, but somebody could say, oh, look, he's not a real guy. This is all persona. He doesn't show any weakness. How can he be a real person? This is all a performance. He doesn't show any weakness. No, he's showing you weakness here. He's showing you how emotionally fragile he is. He doesn't think that he's doing it. But that's exactly what he's doing. You look silly. You look silly because you don't understand. You can't even look at reality. You can't even detach yourself from your projections of this like elite. And by the way, I guess Andrew Tate. Okay, I'm going to finish that previous thought. You can't detach yourself from your projections so you can see reality for what it is. That's you being an emotional little girl. Another thing that Andrew Tate does here, I guess he doesn't do it so much in this, but I saw another video where he does this, but he does this thing where, and it's a very, I only bring it up because it's a clever kind of marketing, what Balenciaga is doing. It's on that like Andrew or Alfred Bernays kind of level, that implicit marketing. And he kind of implies that he knows, when he tells you about elites and he just says this about satanic elites and what they believe and what karmic retribution is, even though it's not that, when he says that, he comes off as a guy who could be part of the elite if he wanted to be, but he's going to keep it real and tell you how it is. Right? Because it's one thing to make fun of, or complain about elites if you don't feel like you can be one of them. Because then there's always that element of weakness and you just want to be one of them and you're just complaining because you're not in the cool kid club. But if you say it in this way, and I have to imagine that this is deliberate, at least unconsciously deliberate. Andrew Tate talks about how, yeah, they want to buy him off. He knows guys who are this way and that way, and they want to buy him off. And it's just clever marketing, just like what these pictures are, which I think, which is why I think it's okay to show the ads. I showed you the ads. I think it's okay. I mean, if I thought this was really a promotion of pedophilia, then it would just be horrible, and I would hate to show you. But because it's a clear joke, because the intention is different, right, then it's funny and I can show you. Just, I don't know, just thought of that. But let's see what else he has to say.
They are making it extremely clear to you, on purpose, little by little, trying to show the world they are pedophilic, because that way they will not be punished in the eyes of their God for their crimes.
Yeah, maybe.
This is not just strange, unusual, some kind of coincidence. No, this is elites telling you that they are absolutely and utterly pedophiles, and they are here to see if you are complicit in the actions themselves.
Yeah, so his false dichotomy here is either it's all coincidence, or it's oh, that probably shows up. Or it's I mean, we know it's not a coincidence, so therefore it must be elites or pedophiles, or they're making fun of you. All right, see what else he has to say.
Now that you understand that, the question is, what are you really going to do?
God, that's so condescending. Now that you understand that, now that I just laid this massive truth bomb on you, oh God, it's just awful. Stick to kickboxing. This is how silly it would be if I try to be a professional kickboxer now. Stick with what you can do. You just look silly. You look silly to everybody who knows what has a couple philosophical neurons in their brain to rub together. Anyway.
Boycotting Balenciaga is a fantastic start, sure. But it's the very, very...
Yeah, boycott Balenciaga. Dude, they sell $700 t-shirts. That's why it's so funny. Get it? Because if you're a libtard left in this culture where the right won the culture where they're not shopping at Cabela's anyways. They're going to put the children in blackface because it's funny. They're making fun of you. And that is funny. By the way. Just like this is funny. Boycott Balenciaga. Dude, nobody who gets upset at this, nobody who thinks that elite pedophiles are running the world, you're not buying a $700 t-shirt. I'm not buying a $700, even if I had $1 billion. I'm just too from the Midwest. It would just be embarrassing to me. Yeah, I mean, it's embarrassing. It's, on the one hand, you want a Lamborghini because, oh man, a Lamborghini would be sweet. But on the other hand, if I was driving around in a Lamborghini, I would just feel like the biggest jackass in the world. Just, unbelievable. Same thing if I was wearing hey, Mark, you don't even have to buy the $700 t-shirt. We'll pay you $700 for you to wear the t-shirt. I still couldn't do it. Just knowing that the shirt cost $700, I couldn't do it. It's too embarrassing. Even if nobody else found out, I would know. Right. You're going to boycott Balenciaga. Okay. All right, dude. Yeah. And, Mickey Rooney's going to boycott the Big and Tall store, right? I mean, come on.
The tip of an iceberg, and it's a very, very deep and scary rabbit hole. And when you truly understand who is running the world.
It's a tip of the iceberg that's a scary and deep rabbit hole. Okay. Is the House of Cards Domino's going to fall like a House of Cards checkmate? Is that right again? Okay.
Really understand how fucked up this world is. Then you're going to find out that.
Oh, wait, I want to hear him say that. Let's go back.
It's the very, very tip of an iceberg, and it's a very, very deep and scary rabbit hole. And when you truly understand who is running the world, and you truly understand how fucked up this world is, then you're going to find out that a larger change than
when you truly understand who's running the world and how messed up it is. Could you imagine? I don't want to be like, could you imagine guy, but could you imagine? I mean, it comes down to this point I bring up, and I've mentioned in several videos. guys will talk about all the time, and I'm sure Andrew Tate does this. He talks all the time, I'm sure, about how it's important to take responsibility for yourself. Don't be a victim. Don't be a martyr. Your life is your life and nobody else is in charge. Yet at the same time, what he's going to do is turn around and talk about how the world is messed up, how there's people in charge, and there's effectively nothing you can do about it. That's being a victim. That's being the biggest pussy victim in the entire... It doesn't get more victim-y than that. I mean, what a strange statement to make, that the world is so incredibly messed up. The implication is there's nothing you can do about it, except boycott Balenciaga. He indicates something deeper, but it's just vague of we really need to rise up and change the world to overturn, the people who are in charge. I mean, talk about victimhood. Is the world messed up? I mean, what a strange statement to just say that blankly, the world is messed up. Yeah, there are some parts of the world that I would like to change if I had a magic wand, but even then, I don't think that would be a good idea. Of course, there's always issues that we have with the world. So what? Does that mean the world is messed up? There's also a lot of good things too. Same thing with your life. I mean, this is what I used to do when I was more neurotic before I went to 35,000 years of therapy, is I would rightly point out things with my life that I didn't like, things that I wanted to improve on. And I would just, talk negatively about myself and go, look, I'm an idiot because of these things. Well, yeah, I mean, you're pointing to right facts. And it would be good to change those things, but you generalize that, right? That's what the neurosis, that's what the anxiety does, is you generalize that. It's a self-criticism, self-sabotage, perfectionism. It's all just part of this nerd issue that I had and still have, but maybe to a hopefully lesser degree. And that's what he's doing with the world. The world is messed up. I don't know. I mean, yeah, there's some things I would like to change. Just talk about an intense state of victimhood that he's in throughout this entire rant. I mean, what's more satanic? Satanism or Satan ultimately in an expression of disorder, of anxiety. What's more satanic when we look at it from a symbolic perspective? Balenciaga making fun of you? Or you is the supposedly, the most masculine guy in the world is turned into a whining, pathetic little girl who clearly can't manage his emotions. Yeah, he's showing well, what do you mean Andrew Tate doesn't show any weakness? What do you mean he's not emotional in a negative context? This is him doing it. This is him coming up with a story to make himself... a story about something in the world that he doesn't understand and make himself feel more secure. It doesn't get any more pussied out than that. And I say that full well knowing that Andrew Tate could beat me up and it wouldn't be close. He would clobber me in a kickboxing ring. It doesn't matter. You're still a pussy. He would kill me in the kickboxing ring maybe. It doesn't matter. You're still a pussy. It's like the loser kid after sophomore year of high school. He goes, I'm going to be one of the cool kids. They're making fun of me. I'm going to be one of the cool kids. And then you go and get all these cool clothes and you come back to school in September. It doesn't matter. You can wear the cool clothes. You can do the things. You can say the lines that a cool guy would say. You're still a pussy. Because you still haven't worked on your validation issue. You still haven't worked on that issue that caused you to need to be accepted in order to feel validated about yourself. There's still that issue there. And that's what's going on with Andrew Tate. Okay, how does he finish this?
One particular brand is needed.
Okay, so we need to do more than boycott one particular brand. So what's going on here? You have stories that you tell yourself, yeah. Culture warps our children. Yeah. A lot of bad grammatical errors here in these notes. Please don't look at those. Yeah, I think we rightly see that maybe culture does warp our children and pedophiles do exist. like the trans thing, that's clearly a cultural warping of children. And we think that the Balenciaga ads are just a representation of that. But really, it's a representation of our inability to understand what's going on. The left has bad ideas. The right has no ideas. Right? But it all comes to taking back your projection. Understanding that this world that you see out there is not about, it's not so much about the world that you see out there, and it's more about your projection. You project your issues out, and you think you're interpreting the world, but really you're interpreting your psychological issues. Then things that are not a coincidence at all will seem that way, right? Or you'll misinterpret a coincidence because, again, you're just looking at your psychological issues. So you got to take back these projections, right? You got to look at your psychological issues. You need to be able to talk through your psychological issues in a certain way to become ever more aware of them, so you don't repress them, so you don't repress your anxiety, and then it erupts as some deranged conspiracy theory about the elites control the world, they control you, and they're out to get you, and there's effectively nothing you can do about it. Because, okay, even if that was true, even if it was true that elites controlled the world, they were in power, where does that power come from? I guess we're coming up sort of on election cycle here in America, so I'm going to be making political points probably more often, and I'll hopefully, if I can keep my wits about me, 95% of my political points are going to be around who's in charge. If there are elites in charge, where do they get that power from? Do they just take it from you and there's nothing you can do about it? Or do they feed off of something that you give them unconsciously? It has nothing to do with boycotting Balenciaga. That's the stupidest thing in the world. If there were elite pedophiles who were in control, why would they have that power in the first place? What could you do about it? Where does that come from? I would argue that in part it comes from you getting upset and projecting all your emotional issues on these Balenciaga ads that are clearly jokes, that are clearly making fun of you. I'm going to say more about that in the coming months, maybe the next year or so. And yeah, so we have a way, if you want to take back your projections, we have a way to manage it. We have a way of knowing what to talk about in therapy, more importantly, how to talk about it so you can process, you can become ever more aware of your emotional issues. Ever more aware of your emotional issues. We do it in a way that, honestly, no other therapist in the world does. I don't think anybody's even close to doing what we're doing here. So if you're interested, we do free consultations. AnimusEmpire.com/schedule. Thank you guys, and I wish you all the joy and all the pain that comes from taking back your projections.